We are back on Backstage Live with Francis Largeman-Roth, who's going to be talking about some numbers in our life and why these are important. And we have a bunch of props, which we don't usually have here on Backstage Live.
So that's exciting, right?
So exciting. That already makes me excited. All right, so you spoke about everything from calories to vitamins. Let's get it started. Where do we begin?
Okay, well, let's start with vitamin D. Okay, used to be we didn't really worry about vitamin D, or we only thought of it in terms of bone building because you need vitamin D to absorb calcium. But in the last few years, what we realize is that people are actually very deficient in vitamin D, both adults and kids. And it's because we're covering up more. We're not outside as much. We're not, working outside, and we're wearing a lot of sunscreen. And so our skin actually can make vitamin D, but if you live in the Northeast like we do, the angle of the sun is not really strong enough for us to really be making enough. So 1,000 IUs, that's the number, 1,000 IUs a day is what we should be taking to get enough vitamin D.
It's funny because Dr. Holly Phillips was on, and we're talking about obviously the sun during the summer, making sure you're protected. But you never know because vitamin D is also good for you. The sun, it can be good for you to a certain extent, obviously.
Yeah, and the whole thing with D is that we're finding that it's linked to immunity. Big time linked to immunity. So getting enough is important for staving off things like cancer, diabetes, also high blood pressure. There seems to be a link with a deficiency, as well as depression. So it's one of those all-around vitamins.
Sounds good. All right, so we take that once a day, and then what else?
Okay,
we have an Advil.
Advil. So what this is in reference to is only 6 a day. 30% of Americans...
6 a day?
6 a day. Only 6 a day.
Okay.
I'm not saying you need to take 6 a day. I'm saying because a lot of people over medicate with these and they think, you know what, I'm going to pop 3 at once. And if you do that over time, you can actually end up with an ulcer. You can end up with heartburn and all sorts of nasty things. Wow. So you really do need to stick with the recommendation. And then also don't self-medicate for longer than 10 days. If you have a pain that's ongoing, go see your doctor, check it out, because you're not going to actually fix anything by taking these. You're just going to relieve it for the time being.
People get addicted to stuff like that, or like NyQuil, because, falling asleep. I mean, these are obviously things that are easy to buy, but you need to watch how much you consume of it.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I think people think that if you are able to buy it over the counter, that it's absolutely safe. Now, you have to use it as recommended.
Recommended, and you're here to tell us those recommendations. All right, sugar. I just stay away from this. Stay away.
Do you stay away from the whole category?
Well, I'm sure there's sugar in certain foods that you don't realize, but I try to stay away.
So what do you stay away from, Shira? What do you?
Are we going? All right, so we'll just talk about I try to. I love dessert. I have a sweet tooth, and I love food, but I will during the week or before shoots, which I have a lot of. I'll try not to, have the cakes or the sweets and all that. And I actually don't do sweet and low, and I don't really do sodas.
Yeah, well, that's good for you. You're doing much better than most Americans.
Yeah.
Most Americans are getting, for added sugars, they're getting 30 teaspoons a day. What we should be getting is only 8 teaspoons. And when I say added sugar, it's not necessarily what you're pouring onto things.
I mean, everything from juice even. Like, people don't realize how much sugar juice has. Or even...
Well, I'm not talking natural sugars.
Oh, really? So what are you talking about?
If you're having 100% juice, that's fine. I'm talking about your salad dressing has sugar.
Yeah, or ketchup
has sugar. Yeah. Bread. Many breads are sweetened. So you really have to look at the label and read it and look for those added sugars. And sometimes they can show up as molasses, high fructose corn syrup, just regular corn syrup. So... and then, of course, you don't also want to be adding additional sugar on top of food. Yeah. So look for things that are naturally sweet, like fruit.
And if you're going to have sugar, you want that little sweet little edge to your food, definitely, would you recommend the Splendas and everything?
No, actually, I wouldn't.
Never mind. Well, that's why you're here. And you're the expert.
Only 3 packets a day. So some people go, they say, all right, I'm cutting out sugar. But I like things sweet, and most Americans do have a very, very high threshold for sweetness, and so they might be adding 2 packets of artificial sweetener to their coffee. Maybe they're having 3 coffees a day, so they're loading up, and then they're having yogurt with artificial sweetener, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's not that these things are not safe, but we don't know over time really what effect they have. And also, I think that it's not a good idea to be sort of consuming that much sweetness, whether it's natural or artificial. So 3 packets a day is your limit.
How much again of this, Max?
Only 8 teaspoons.
And how much is that?
How much is that? Well, a teaspoon really, it's a little amount.
Teeny weeny.
It's a teeny amount. Yeah, it really is. So it's a goal. I think that probably for many of us it's not achievable right away, but it's a goal to work towards.
And people don't realize this, and you're more of an expert obviously on this as well, that something might not have fat calories or carbs, but the sugars, they'll have high sugars, and that translates into fat in the end as well.
Well, if it has sugars, it's going to have carbs because sugars are carbohydrates.
Because on the ingredients, it's all separated. I don't know, I always think about this because it's interesting because things translate into the other. You think because something's like zero saturated fat or zero that. Anyway.
I think the point that you're going for is that if you take in too many calories, no matter where they're from, it can end up as more pounds on you.
And moving on. That was definitely complex and interesting. No, but these are things to think about because people just go to the Splenda because they think it's an easy answer, and then it's okay for them. All right, do we have any others? No, this is my tea.
Right, that's your tea. So we've run out of props, but another number is 500. That's the number of calories that you have to cut a day, either through less food or more exercise, to lose a pound a week.
How many calories a day should we be consuming again?
Well, it really depends on how active you are and also how big you are. But for the average woman, it's about, between 1,500 to 1,000 calories. For the average man, 2,000 to 2,500.
I must say it's crazy because just even going for lunch yesterday, I mean, just the salad's 500. That's one meal. Obviously, we're walking around a lot, but...
Well, we are in New York. We're walking around a lot. But think of the rest of the country. So... people are sedentary, they're driving around in their cars, but that's the number to keep in mind, 500 to lose a pound a week.
And then you had other numbers that you included also.
There's one.
One other, and I'll let you describe this.
The magic number 1 is the number of orgasms we should be having per day for good health. This is all for good health. This is not,
Who did these tests?
Well, this actually came from an expert in women's sexual health, and this is because an orgasm releases natural opiates, and that reduces stress, reduces anxiety, and that's good for our hearts. And also, when you have an orgasm, it increases the blood flow in the area, and that keeps you healthy down south.
That was a good way to end the interview on a high note, on a high, happy note. Thank you so much for everything, and have a great weekend.
Okay, great to meet you.
Great to meet you, too.